Have you ever met someone or, maybe read about someone who just seems to operate on a completely different level?
Hmm.
Not just successful in a CEO kind of way, but a true master of their own domain, someone who has found a shortcut to, well, to absolute control.
Welcome back to the deep dive. And you've really hit on something there, because today we're looking at a text that, well, it's unlike anything we've tackled before.
It really is.
It's a philosophical work that sets the bar for self-mastery, not just high, but almost literally out of this universe.
Our mission today is to do a line by line, almost a cinematic deep dive into Chapter 10, Lead Like a Legend.
Right.
And this comes from a much larger, very dense philosophical work called Legend Mind, Zero to Infinity. The author is Sonu Kumar, who also goes by, and I love this, the SKR.
And that cinematic framing you mentioned is perfect,
Yeah.
because the author gives us this exhaustive framework for defining what a legend is. And it's a person whose whole life, whose very existence is a masterpiece of extreme self-control and hyper-strategic thinking.
So we're going to break down that whole interdisciplinary lens he uses, how he fuses chess strategy, deep philosophy, and these really intense self-development techniques all together.
Exactly. We'll look at the foundation, the strategic rules that are embodied by this figure called the Mantra of chess.
And then we get into the really astonishing stuff, the behavioral profile of the legend. This includes just a wild method for engineering your own emotional control, something called the three-strike rule.
It's a manual for ultimate utility and self-management. And I think the big question we need to unpack is, what does it actually take to live this way? Is it even possible?
Let's find out. So to really get Chapter 10, we have to understand the world it comes from, the world of the legend mind.
Right. You have to grasp the sheer scope of this project first. I mean, the subtitle alone, From Zero to Infinity, tells you a lot.
It's not just a catchy phrase.
Not at all. It frames the entire book as an attempt to build a complete system for life, right? Moving from, I guess, the most basic state of awareness zero all the way to this ultimate infinite comprehension and self-definition.
And that definition, that ultimate goal, it starts right away with this really profound spiritual declaration. It grounds the author's whole motivation in a sense of detachment.
It really does. The book is dedicated, and this is pretty striking, to my immortal guru, the Lord Shiva.
Which you might think comes from, I don't know, years of monastic study or something.
You would think. But what's so fascinating here is that this connection, this spiritual anchor, is linked, as he says in the acknowledgments, to watching Shiva's role on television.
On TV.
On TV. And that exposure, that observation, inspired this drive for a life of zero attraction of the world.
That's the foundational move right there.
It is, recognizing this need for absolute detachment, which then, he says, led him to start living alone, to really go after these huge philosophical questions that make up the book.
So that first step, that act of isolation, it's not about being lonely, it's a strategic choice.
Completely. Solitude born from a desire for cosmic detachment. It's the key structural element of the legend's character. The author is basically telling you, if you want to achieve this status, you first have to create a space, both mental and physical, where all the external noise is just eliminated.
The legend is built in isolation.
Absolutely. And once you've laid that foundation, he defines the ultimate goal using the title itself, the acronym for legend.
Okay, this is amazing. It's this powerful, almost mystical phrase, legacy, even God end, not demons.
Right. It's not just a clever mnemonic.
No, it's a massive philosophical statement. It's
Yeah.
about ambition.
It is. It defines the legend's success, their legacy, as something that exists on a timeless plane. It transcends the ultimate forces we think of, creation and destruction. If your legacy survives the end of both divine and demonic influence, what's left?
Pure strategy.
Pure, unadulterated strategic mastery. And the author even clarifies this later. He says, in other words, where a leg of God and demon end, then the legend is born in this present world of universe.
So the legend isn't playing on the same field. They're not competing for moral high ground with gods, and they're not succumbing to destructive forces like demons.
Exactly. They occupy this third space, a detached space defined purely by their lasting impact. It's all about strategic utility. It's a really profound rejection of that conventional good versus evil duality.
Okay, so how do you even begin to construct a person capable of that, of achieving that transcendent state?
Well, that's where the author realized he couldn't just stick to one field of study. He says in the preface he commits to an interdisciplinary approach to solve his curious questions.
And the list of disciplines he consulted It's just staggering.
It's huge.
He studied science, math, religious texts, idioms, physics, numerology, cosmology, geography. And he adds, many more disciplines.
We're not talking about a specialist here. This is someone trying to create a unified field theory of self-mastery.
Right. And the implication for you, the listener, is pretty clear. If you want to get on this path to legend status, you have to synthesize knowledge from sources that, on the surface, have nothing to do with each other.
How does a concept from physics, like gravitational force, relate to the concept of strategic patience you might find in a religious text? The legend has to find those connections. They have to build that bridge.
And all of that intellectual groundwork feeds directly into the structure of the book itself, which gives us context for Chapter 10.
Exactly. Chapter 10 is in Unit 1, which is called 10 Shades of the Legend. This isn't just about self-improvement anymore. That was Unit 0, which covered mind, wisdom, attitude. This is about looking outward.
Observation and integration?
Precisely. Unit 1 presents 10 different roles. Things like view like a kid, think like a monk, speak like a politician. The legend observes these shades strategically. They are not trying to become a monk.
They're extracting the essence.
Yes. The introduction to the unit says the legend watches these professions to pick the central activity of each one. They find that one critical, potent skill and apply it to their own life. It's the ultimate form of strategic borrowing.
The goal, as the author says, is to master a different profession in one life.
Which is hyper-efficiency.
Right.
It's all driven by this one powerful realization about what the ultimate resource is.
And that resource is time.
Always time. The author elevates it above everything else. He calls time the supreme guru in Mega Universe.
The supreme guru.
Yeah. And if time is your supreme teacher, then every single decision you make has to be optimized to maximize its use. That's the framework. That's what sets up the extreme strategic thinking we're about to get into.
The legend is, at their core, a manager of time.
That's a perfect way to put it. All the strategies that follow are designed to eliminate the inefficiencies, the dramas, the distractions that waste the lessons of this supreme guru.
Okay, so that relentless focus on time and efficiency, it brings us right to the core metaphor of Chapter 10.
The mantra.
The mantra. The author doesn't use a general or a CEO. He uses a legendary chess player, the mantra, which is like a minister or a key advisor.
And that choice immediately shifts the whole focus. It moves it away from visible brute force power to strategic influence and foresight. We're not talking about the king who is valuable but static. He has to be protected.
Right.
We're talking about the powerful maneuvering piece in chess. It's the queen, the mantra, whose every single move dictates the flow of the entire game.
Yeah.
And the text makes it clear. Legend, the mantra of chess, is a concept. It's a model, not a specific person.
It's a strategic blueprint. So let's unpack this blueprint. There are 6 specific, really demanding principles for leading like a legend. And it all starts with the foundation. Rule 1, master the board, know your domain.
The chess parallel is so clear here. A master knows every square, every piece's potential, every possible line of attack. For the legend, this means 2 things. Deep self-inventory and total environmental awareness.
On the internal side, you have to know your strength and weakness. And the analogy in the source is brilliant.
It is.
He compares a knight's L-shaped move, which can jump over other pieces, to a bishop's clean diagonal move. You have to know your own unique operational geometry.
Yes.
Right.
When is your personal knight move the right play? The unorthodox jump. And when do you need that straightforward, powerful bishop move? You have to know your own pieces.
And then externally, you have to master the environment, the board.
And this isn't just your immediate team, it's everything. The whole organization, the industry, the market rules, the key players, your rivals, and all the threats and opportunities. If one square on that board changes, the legend has to recalibrate their entire strategy instantly.
You can't get to checkmate if you misread the terrain.
Never. Which is why this intimate knowledge is what allows the legend to use Rule 2. Think several moves ahead. Strategic foresight.
This is the big difference, right? A normal leader manages the crisis that's right in front of them.
Exactly. They're reactive. The legend manages the ultimate outcome. They're always working backward from the end goal. They define their ultimate checkmate for a project or for their whole career, and every move serves that final goal.
Okay, but I have to ask, in a really chaotic world, a fast-moving market, a political crisis, whatever, is this deep, multi-move foresight even practical? Doesn't the legend risk becoming too slow, too detached, while other people are making quick, opportunistic moves?
That is the critical distinction here. The mantra's foresight isn't slow. It's actually about speed. It's about rapid internal simulation.
But it's not hesitation.
No, it's preparation.
Huh.
The text stresses that the legend mentally plays out multiple scenarios. They predict the opponent's next 3 possible reactions, the consequences of those, and their own countermoves for each one, all before committing to a single action.
They're running a supercomputer of possibilities in their head.
That's it. It's a rapid calculation to minimize surprise, not a hesitant pause. It's preparedness that looks like caution to an outsider.
That makes a lot of sense. Which brings us to Rule 3, and this one is, it's probably the most strategically complex and maybe ethically demanding part of chess.
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice for a greater good. Calculated risk.
This is where the legend really proves they're playing a different game entirely. A grandmaster will, without hesitation, sacrifice a valuable piece, even the queen, the Montri, if that loss guarantees a decisive positional advantage that leads to victory 10 moves down the line.
And in life, that means being willing to let go of small victories.
Giving up on a project that's working pretty well, or even just a personal preference, if it distracts from that ultimate long-term checkmate.
But the author takes it even deeper. He applies this to managing a team through delegation.
Yes, this is key. A legend has to be willing to sacrifice control. They empower others, they delegate, and they see this loss of direct control as a calculated risk. When you manage it correctly, it results in a stronger, more motivated team.
So by giving away a piece of their immediate authority,
They actually fortify their entire position on the board. The sacrifice, paradoxically, builds greater, more resilient control in the long run.
okay, so Rule 4 then shifts the focus from the board itself to the pieces. Value every piece. Recognize and nurture.
And here we come back to that powerful idea of the pawn. The most humble piece on the board, but it has the potential to become a queen if it can just reach the other side.
So the legend sees resources not as they are, but as what they could become.
Latent potential, exactly. The instruction here is to mentor and develop, to train that pawn to move forward, giving them the feedback, the resources, the opportunities to promote their own skills.
And it's also about appreciating different kinds of strengths. The source specifically says a rook's straight-line power is just as crucial as a bishop's diagonal reach.
Right. You're not trying to build a team of 10 queens. That would be inefficient. You need a diverse, specialized set of pieces that can cover the entire board, to prevent any critical vulnerabilities in your strategy.
So all of these strategic rules, they're held together by Rule 5. This feels like the linchpin. Remain calm under pressure. Emotion control.
It absolutely is the linchpin, because if the Mantri panics when they're under attack, if their clock is running down, then all that brilliant foresight and calculated sacrifice is just wasted.
It's all for nothing.
All for nothing. So this requires an active, practiced internal state. The legend has to practice mindfulness. They have to observe their own stress or fear without letting those emotions actually drive their decisions.
So when the crisis hits, the instruction is literally take a deep breath, assess the situation logically, just like a chess player analyzing the board under pressure.
And that composure is what allows for the most critical step, separating the person from the problem.
A mistake, whether it's yours or someone on your team's, it's not a personal failure. It's not a failure of character.
It's just data.
It's just a piece of data to learn from. You focus all your energy on solving the problem, not on blaming someone. You remove all that emotional residue from the equation. Okay, and finally, the loop closes with Rule 6. Learn from every game. Continuous improvement.
The legend's training is never, ever over. Win or lose, the postmortem is absolutely essential.
So this means you have to actively seek out feedback, even criticism.
Especially criticism. You have to use it as a deliberate tool for growth. It's the only mechanism that protects you from complacency.
And after every major project, you conduct these rigorous postmortems. The reflection has to be intense. What were the key lessons? What moves would I change if I could play that game again?
And the author frames this whole process, this relentless cycle of self-reflection and adaptation, as the very thing that turns a good player into a legend. It's that constant pursuit of self-optimization. That's what defines the Mantri.
So the Mantri metaphor gives us the strategic framework, the how. But what does this level of foresight and control actually look like in a person's day-to-day behavior?
Right, and this next part of the chapter gives us an incredibly vivid, almost psychological profiles, like, to use your framing, watching an elite intelligence agent operating in silent mode.
It starts with something called the backbencher philosophy.
The legend is described as the backbencher of the class who believe in to lead from back.
Okay.
Which, I mean, that seems Completely counterintuitive.
Totally. We think of leaders as being out front, taking the initiative, being the first to speak up. The author is arguing for the exact opposite.
He is. He's saying this is the purest expression of the legend's fundamental law, the mastery of patience.
And the seminar example he gives is the perfect way to understand this. It's so clear.
It really is. So imagine a class of 10 students, all have to give a presentation. The eager ones, the intelligent students, they all rush to go first. They want to show off what they know right away.
But the legend strategically waits. They allow themselves to go last.
And by waiting, they gain this massive tactical advantage. They get to observe all 9 previous presentations. They sit there silently, and they catalog every single fault, every weak point, every mistake made by their friends.
So when it's their turn, their execution is flawless.
Perfect. The legend ensures they give a better seminar than others by correcting all those faults. So they are leading, but not by being first. They're leading by having the most complete, the most perfectly calibrated knowledge. Observation always comes before execution.
And the text makes point of saying this incredible patience is totally invisible to the outside world. They are a master in it.
Yes, they maintain a silent mode, and they actively filter out everything they consider to be unnecessary activities which are no meaning in his life.
This isn't just being introverted. This is purposeful non-engagement. It's a strategy.
It is absolutely a strategy.
Yeah.
The author draws a really strong parallel here. He compares the legend to an agent of CBI or any investigation organization.
A spy.
A spy, basically. Someone who only engages, only leads when it is most necessary for him. They ignore the normal condition, all the daily chatter and drama, and they save their energy for the critical moment of intervention. Their silence is a weapon.
And the engine that's running behind that silence is this state of hypercognition. The text says a normal person thinks. The legend is an overthinker.
Right. And overthinker here isn't a negative term like anxiety. It's a strategic process.
How so?
It's defined as the act of creating many games or rule for best of the best result in their own mind. So before the legend makes any choice in the real world, they have already run multiple simulations of that choice internally. They've played out all the possibilities.
So they can reach the perfect conclusion.
Exactly. It's based on exhaustive mental rehearsal. The external move they finally make just seems inevitable, It's the optimized outcome of all that relentless internal calculation.
And this way of thinking is inherently visionary. They're not just playing the game on the board in front of them.
Never. They're always looking beyond it. The fish analogy drives this point home so well.
Yeah, the fish in the aquarium.
The legend is that 1 out of 5 fishes in an aquarium who is not satisfied just living there. They are always thinking about the world beyond that particular aquarium.
That's the definition of thinking out of box.
Yeah.
It's an intellectual refusal to be limited by your current observable reality.
Exactly.
Okay, now we have to turn to what is, I think, the most psychologically intense part of the legend's profile. A concept so vivid it really demands that cinematic analysis we talked about.
The 3-strike rule.
The calculated response to anger and risk, all codified in this 3-strike rule.
The core instruction, the non-negotiable rule, is that the legend must remain calm and composed in every single situation. Easy or tough, but anger. Anger is a basic human reaction. So how does the legend manage a direct threat or a provocation from an enemy?
They don't react. Not at first. They use extreme strategic patience. If someone makes the legend angry, the immediate response is nothing.
Right. The enemy is given 3 separate chances, 3 times to realize their own fault. And this isn't about being generous or forgiving.
No, it's data collection.
It's data collection and controlled positioning. They're observing, they're waiting, they're letting the opponent reveal their entire hand.
If that provocation happens a 4th time,
then the legend's response is decisive and completely overwhelming. The text says the legend reacts as a monster.
a monster.
The monster. This isn't a loss of control. It's a predetermined, strategically necessary escalation. Tactical non-reaction is suddenly replaced by overwhelming force to ensure that provocation can never, ever happen again.
And the mechanism, the method that legend uses to control their anger during those first 3 strikes is just, it's astonishing.
It's unbelievable. During that period of forced calm, the legend doesn't just, meditate or count to 10. They use a form of internal emotional engineering.
He says they imagine the person's image on a wall and punch the wall.
And punch the wall with full force of hand. But here's the crucial part. This is not about lashing out externally. It's an internal measurement. They punch the wall to know their own inner anger strength.
They're quantifying their own destructive capacity.
Yes. It's emotional data harvesting. They are treating their own rage as a measurable resource, a force that can be calculated. They need to know the force of their inner monster so they can control its release perfectly when they decide to unleash it on that fourth strike.
It is the ultimate form of self-quantification. It's terrifying in a way.
It is, and the result is, the next day, the legend returns to the situation completely calm and composed. They've used that physical release as a pressure valve, and it maintains their greatest strategic advantage. The enemy can't read legend mind.
The legend remains a total enigma because their reaction time and the magnitude of their response are perfectly coldly engineered.
And that level of control, it requires a ruthless kind of strategic prioritization, which is reflected in how they approach risk.
The legend is a risk taker, fundamentally, but the risks are always weighed against the supreme guru.
Time. And this is where the source gives us probably the most chilling statement of pure utility in the entire chapter.
For the legend, time is more important than any person life.
Yeah.
That one sentence just strips away every non-essential layer of human sentiment. It underscores that every strategic calculation, including sacrificing smaller pieces on the board or even putting others at risk, is justified if it saves or maximizes that ultimate finite resource, time.
It's a shocking statement, but within the logic of this system, it's perfectly consistent.
So this extreme behavioral profile, it has to dictate a very specific kind of life, a life of detachment and singular focus.
Exactly. The legend's lifestyle isn't a preference, it's a mechanism. It's a machine designed to uphold the purity of their strategic mindset.
So we come back to isolation. It was the start of the author's philosophy, and it's the legend's preferred state.
The legend prefers to live alone, most of the time, to control himself mind in perfect and balanced manner.
So solitude isn't about loneliness. It's about maintaining equilibrium.
Perfect equilibrium, the constant overthinking, the scenario planning, it all requires this neutral state of mind that's completely free from external emotional interference, not loneliness. It's necessary cognitive hygiene.
And this pursuit of control also means skipping most social activities.
Radically skipping them. The legend reclassifies most conventional social interaction. They see it as just a part of drama where people talk about someone positive or negative thing and truth or lie of their own family member.
Just noise.
Just noise.
Yeah.
And engaging in that drama is classified as a waste of own energy. The legend systematically skips lots of small activity or works that don't contribute to their main strategic goal. If it's not moving them closer to checkmate, it is an unacceptable drain on time.
And their communication style follows that same utility-focused logic.
Completely. They are straightforward. They don't manipulate, he says, because they know the importance of that person's time as well as their own.
So it's a form of respect, in a way.
A very strategic form of respect. And they only joke or talk to people they know it very well, which implies their inner circle is tiny and has been highly, highly vetted.
This also shows up in their work ethic, which is interesting. The legend is explicitly called a moody person.
Yeah, who cannot be persuaded to work when their mood is not set for it.
Which seems like a flaw, but in this system, it's a strength.
It is. They refuse to operate suboptimally. It's a rejection of external schedules in favor of internal efficiency. They only engage with a task when they know they can operate at peak performance, which ensures the maximum return on their investment of time.
All of this, the wisdom, the efficiency, it leads to a simple lifestyle. The author notes that because of this wisdom, the legend lives all time calm and composed, which again serves that primary goal that no one read legend mind or legend behavior.
Their external simplicity is a kind of camouflage for their extreme internal complexity.
They are masters of their emotions. They know how to trigger them, manage them, or suppress them to maintain that critical neutral state.
Every external cue is a deliberate choice. It's never just a spontaneous reaction. Everything is part of the game.
So if the legend's ultimate focus is legacy and the optimization of time, they have to confront the endpoint of all that: mortality. How does this hyper-strategic person approach their own death?
Without fear. They accept it as a fundamental truth of the system. They don't fear their own death because they recognize that one day everyone has to leave the entire world via death's stage of life.
And accepting that, it removes the one vulnerability that paralyzes most of us.
Exactly. And that is the source of the legend's ultimate tactical advantage. This lack of fear is what makes the legend the most dangerous opponent you could ever face.
If they face an enemy or a whole group of enemies, they not fear to that person.
When you value your time more than your own life and you fully accept mortality, You become unbound. You're no longer governed by the fear that dictates the actions of normal people. And this is the ultimate justification for their disengagement from society's dramas. They're just operating with completely different stakes.
So if we put it all together, if we synthesize this entire profile, the legend is this: the self-made force of nature, hyperstrategic, emotionally neutral, detached. All of it aimed at the singular goal of maximizing the supreme guru.
Time.
That-
The core philosophical conclusion is just. It's undeniable. The legend is defined by their psychological control. Every single action, from the tiniest social interaction to the biggest risk, is filtered through this one mandate of self-mastery and strategic utility. They're playing the long game, and they are willing to pay the absolute highest price to make sure their legacy endures beyond all conventional boundaries.
That was an absolutely unparalleled deep dive into a framework that defines leadership not by, charisma or collaboration, but by absolute internal control and strategic detachment.
It's a completely different model.
And we've really seen the three pillars of how the legend gets there.
Right. First, you have the strategic foresight that comes from the mantra of chess. Master the board, think ahead, and value every piece. It demands a level of self-control and external awareness that, frankly, very few people ever achieve.
Second, you have that extreme behavioral profile, the backbencher strategy, where you prioritize observation and strategic patience over just participating, and the isolation that you need to run those constant internal simulations.
And third, the most astonishing part for me, the clinically precise management of emotion, exemplified by the three-strike rule, and that deliberate, measured act of punching a wall just to quantify your own destructive capacity before you ever deploy it.
What really stands out is just the sheer audacity of the author's interdisciplinary approach here.
It really is something.
By blending physics, cosmology, math, religious philosophy, the text is basically insisting that you have to create your own personalized, optimized playbook. You have to look beyond the traditional boundaries to find your own strategic insights. It's like an exercise in intellectual architecture.
And that architectural effort, it brings us all the way back to that final, profound definition. The legend exists where the leg of God and demon end.
Beyond good and evil.
In a sense, yeah. The legend's legacy is defined by pure utility and self-mastery. It's inspired by a detached spiritual figure, and it's maintained through the ruthless elimination of all emotional variables.
So here is the final provocative thought for you to mull over, and it comes straight from the source material. Given the legend's dedication to Lord Shiva, their preference for total isolation, and this core belief that time is more important than any person's life, what does this positioning beyond the endpoint of both good and evil, what does that actually imply about the nature of the legacy they create?
That's a huge question.
Is the ultimate checkmate for the legend just the destruction of all external dependencies on people, on society, on emotion, leaving only pure self-mastery and time? And I guess the final question is that a legacy worth achieving?
An intense strategic question for you to consider as you examine your own operational board. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.